Now, I know this goes without saying, but Star Wars has been in a bit of a dry patch lately in terms of both content as well as reliable news, or news that actually comes straight from Disney or Lucasfilm, or is otherwise confirmed by them. And to fill this void, it seems like every other week we get a new rumor that supposedly comes from within Lucasfilm but is never actually substantiated, about how this character or that one is going to be getting their own series on Disney+. With the most recent one being that Mace Windu will be getting his own show, or that we'll be getting a young Mace Windu series, and that the character will be played for the most part by a younger actor, though Samuel L. Jackson himself will still be a part of the series in some capacity, and will be playing an older version of the character, though I don't think they mean older as in he survived what happened in Revenge of the Sith and will still be alive, but who knows, I suppose. Not that it really matters, I guess, because love or hate this idea, I wouldn't get too excited or upset just yet, because again, this is a completely unsubstantiated rumor, and at most I'd say this is a piece of information that was maybe intentionally leaked from Lucasfilm, just to perhaps judge fan reaction before any sort of decision on it might be made. They basically floated the idea out there to see how fans felt about it. It's also just as likely someone completely made this up out of absolutely nothing, or maybe heard not long ago how Samuel L. Jackson even said he'd be open to returning to the role, and that it's even one he'd like to return to. Either way, we can just add it to the long list of other rumors, like how Ahsoka is getting her own show, Boba Fett is getting his own show, Ezra and Thrawn will be in a live-action series as well as being featured in an animated sequel to Rebels. Then young Lando will be getting his own series that will pick up after the events of Solo, and will feature some of the characters from it. Even Maul and Darth Vader are rumored to be getting their own shows. There's also the rumor that Hayden Christensen will be in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and that in flashbacks we'll even see him wearing his Clone Wars armor. In fact, there are rumors that Hayden Christensen is coming back to Star Wars in a very big way, and that he'll actually be in the suit for the Darth Vader series. There are even rumors he'll be playing a Force ghost in the rumored Ahsoka series, as well as again being shown in flashbacks, along with Ewan McGregor too, that we'll get to see all three of them together, and that they'll be using de-aging technology on them. And actually, sorry, I just completely made up that last part about Anakin and Obi-Wan being in the Ahsoka series, but it sounded good, so why not run with it? And that's the problem. It's easy for these rumors to get started by any random person on the internet with some sort of platform, and then for the rumor to spread like there is an actual legitimate source somewhere behind it, even though I'd wager there rarely ever is, or that, again, it's anything more than Lucasfilm maybe floating some ideas out there. Anyway here, even though, again, there certainly isn't always, or maybe even usually, truth to these rumors about a character being given their own show, we do know that, yeah, Lucasfilm and Disney have had this approach with other characters or other projects. We got the Solo movie, for example, where the idea there was to take this beloved character and show every single major event from his past that was ever hinted at in the movies, and to cover it over the course of a 2-hour film, and within the span of seemingly a couple days in universe. And though, for whatever reason, I do enjoy Solo, and if you don't, that's absolutely fine, in many respects it is a bad movie that highlights what's wrong with Disney Star Wars, that, not in a good way, they tend to think character first, or pick one first, and then think story second, or go looking for one after they seemingly think to themselves, well, people like this character, so we can just make a movie or series about them, and then make some money. And in the case of Solo, which of course didn't make money and disproves their little theory, all they did was show us things we already knew about Han, how they actually had transpired in his past, and the handful of new things we do learn about him, or the details of his past, don't do anything to really enhance our understanding or appreciation of the character that we see in the original trilogy, or even the sequels, I guess. Nothing is really added to his story, it's just using the character for the sake of telling a story for the sake of making money, or trying to make money. And so when I hear rumors that they want to make a Darth Vader series, for example, which may or may not be true, what I want to know is, what part of his story do they think is still left untold or worth exploring? And sure, there may, and even likely is, still some sort of story to be had there that can enhance the character. Charles Soule, for example, did a great job with the second volume of the Darth Vader comics, captivating us with an interesting story that actually did further the character and was worth reading. But now they're into the third volume and Vader is encountering Padme, when she's supposed to be dead, But don't worry, turns out it's just one of her former handmaidens. In other words, it's just silly, cheap gimmicks to try and get you intrigued, but they're unlikely to lead anywhere or amount to anything because the story of Vader and or Anakin, start to finish, is pretty well laid out, and they're just trying to cram something into the tiny cracks left over by other, better stories about him. And this for me was the problem with the first volume of the new canon mainline Star Wars comics from Marvel, where we got 70 some issues of Han, Luke, Leia, and all the others set between episodes 4 and 5, where we know going into it that very little of relevance can actually happen to these characters, and so they tried to sell these stories or comics with gimmicks like, hey look, Han Solo was married once, oh boy, how very interesting, I wonder how this is going to turn into a nothing burger. And now we move on to talking about the 100% confirmed and soon to be filming Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And considering the original scripts for this were completely thrown out and the whole thing had to be rewritten, and according to rumors again, that's because the original idea was to make Obi-Wan like a mentor to Luke while on Tatooine, and maybe even to Leia somehow, which is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. So dumb, I hope these rumors were the type that were completely made up by someone, and that this wasn't actually being considered. Anyway, considering the original scripts for the series, for whatever reason, got scrapped, it does tend to confirm that the approach here was initially, let's use Kenobi for a series and then find the right story, because we know people will pay for this. Not to first worry about if there even is a story to be told. And don't get me wrong here, I absolutely think there is one when it comes to Obi-Wan in this time period. I do like the idea that there might be one critical event in between the two trilogies where something happens and it truly turns the version of Obi-Wan we see enter the deserts of Tatooine at the end of the prequels into the one who leaves them at the start of the original trilogy, and then ultimately gives his life for Luke. To me, and I hope this makes sense, but those two versions of Kenobi, the Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness versions, are both the same, and yet not the same character at the same time. Again, I think there's something missing that truly or definitively unifies them, or that shows the transition, and I think that could make for a heck of a story if done right. And for the record, when it comes to the Clone Wars or animated version of Kenobi, played by James Arnold Taylor, I think he does a fantastic job of both making the character his own, and yet mimicking the Ewan McGregor version. Anyway, recently we had it confirmed by Ewan McGregor himself that the Kenobi series is just going to be one season and that it'll be 4 or 6 episodes long, which I think is great news. This doesn't need to be a long, drawn-out, multiple season thing. Instead, it should be a very focused story that, again, helps us understand why Kenobi goes into the desert one way and comes out another. This series should allow a bridge to be created and connected between them, and then caps off the already fantastic story of Obi-Wan Kenobi, before he's put away forever, only to be used as a cameo or as a minor part to play in another story about another character perhaps. And maybe the truly funny thing about all these rumors, assuming there's any truth to them or that their ideas being floated by Lucasfilm perhaps, you'd think would happen with the sequel trilogy and with Solo at the box office, that it would discourage them from wanting to keep taking pre-established characters and using them for a series or a movie or whatever. Furthermore, when you consider that The Mandalorian is maybe the most universally enjoyed piece of content from Disney Star Wars, and that it was all new characters, you'd think they'd take that as a sign. And I'm actually surprised that all these big named characters that are rumored to show up in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, and that Jon Favreau commented that he wanted to maybe make the show more like Game of Thrones, with multiple character storylines going on at once. Either way, I do think, as The Mandalorian seems to suggest, it's easier to make a brand new character and create a great story as you develop and let your audience get to know the character than it is to take a well-established and already beloved character and to find a story for them that most fans are actually going to accept or appreciate. And again, if there's truth to any of these rumors, that's something that Lucasfilm and or Disney just can't seem to figure out, that they need to actually expand Star Wars to take it to different places with different characters. Though yes, they do seem to be conducting a sort of test run with the High Republic era, though right out of the box I find 200 years before the prequels to be an odd period to thoroughly explore, but who knows. Well, that's all I've got for this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about all these rumors. Do you think there's any truth to any of them? Or is it maybe just Lucasfilm purposely leaking this stuff to see what fans think before they commit to anything? Or is it all just made up? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.